Welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. This is Kyle Hunter. Kiev's with me, as always, from the oddsbreakers.com. We've got a new guest here, Ben Carey, founder of Capwise. Ben, how you doing today? Thanks for coming on here.
I'm doing good. It's Friday, Super Bowl coming up, college basketball, good time of the year.
Absolutely, yeah. I was happy to get you on here today, Ben. I know we've talked here for several years. I think we've probably known each other for 4 or 5 years now. Time flies. I know you've gotten bigger over there at Capwise. You got a big TikTok following, which is awesome, and congratulations for the success. And I'm happy to have you come on. If you could just take 30 seconds to tell viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, appreciate the words and thanks for having me. So our goal at Capwise really is to kind of bridge the gap between the objective and the subjective. So, this super numbers driven type of handicapping versus your more objective handicapping, and kind of combine the two, acknowledging that one's not really better than the other, so to speak. And you can use both, because I think a lot of times in the space, some people want to lean too heavy on one side or the other, and really just giving access to data to just the regular sports bettor. So that's really our goal. And, just making sure that we're transparent, giving out a lot of information and value. And yeah, at the end of the day, we're trying to help people become better bettors. So
nice. Yeah. Appreciate you coming on. Like I said, definitely. And Kiev, how you doing today down there in sunny Arizona?
Well, it got cold down to the 60s, so I was a little disappointed in that, Kyle. But I'll see if I can rough it out. Otherwise, I'm
turn the heat up.
Having a blast with college basketball. I was on a great run, but it kind of broke recently. I went 1-2 the last 2 days, but the runs are not sustainable. But the important thing is how meticulous you can be when you look for plays, and that's what we do at the Odds Breakers. But I'm really happy to have Ben on. Ben's got a great site there and a great show, and I'm excited to get his takes here because, this is the first weekend, buddy, without football distracting us, and we have all college basketball to talk about.
Yeah, and all of us love football, but college basketball, a real love of ours as well. So it's nice to have some focus on college basketball. And we still get to talk about the NFL some. We'll talk about it here in just a second. I do want to give a quick mention to Sports Wagering University. All three of us will be part of that. I'm excited about that. This will be posted on the Sports Wagering University YouTube as well. You can follow that, subscribe over there. There's going to be a free college basketball live class on February 22nd. We're looking forward to it. There's lots of stuff coming up, MMA classes, tennis classes, every sport you can think of is going to be classes, many beginner classes. As I said, Ben and Kiev will be part of that as well. So looking forward to it, guys. And I think there'll be a lot of big things coming there at Sports Wagering University. And the goal of that is kind of like Ben was talking about a minute ago, is to educate people, help people become improved sports bettors. We know that there's so many people out there that are just going to lose no matter what. Most people do lose in sports betting. We'll try to help give people some edges in sports betting. So, guys, let's talk a little bit here about the Super Bowl to start with. The lines right now, Bengals plus 4.5, Bengals plus 4, some places 48.5. I'm actually sitting here thinking, I don't know why I didn't wear my Bengals hat today. That was a missed opportunity, but next week I'll have it.
We see the stripe in the background on the wall.
There you go. Yeah. You guys know where my allegiances lie for this one. So, I've been pretty pumped that the Bengals have made it this far. I always keep my expectations low for the Bengals, but this team's definitely a different team with Joe Burrow at quarterback, and love his story. Taylor, I'm not sure that Taylor is a great coach, but they seem to play hard for him. I think the Bengals are at a disadvantage playing a road game here. Certainly, the defensive line for the Rams against the Bengals offensive line, nightmare matchup. So we'll see if the Bengals can get rid of the ball quick enough. But guys, do you have any initial thoughts? I'll start with Kiev here on this one. Do you have any initial thoughts on the spread or total? I mean, you think this is pretty fair? Do you think the line will move too much here before the game?
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair where it's at, and there's narratives based on the way it went. The books open it up at 50 for a total, and it's kind of like teetering to the key number of 51. Well, all of a sudden the sharper players didn't even wait for that. They hit it right away because they thought that that was the direction it should be going, and it's not going to pass the 51 or get up to 51. So the narrative of the Rams defense certainly reigned pretty high importance when it comes to looking at the direction of the total. The spread itself, I'm not even sure if it really factors in a home field advantage. As we know, the Rams don't have a massive home field advantage here, but it factors in what you mentioned. I think the offensive line, where the Bengals are ranked number 31st in adjusted sack rate. And part of the reason is because Burrow does hold the ball a little long. We know that. But, he can't be taking those big sacks. I think the way to beat the Rams is to do the short screen passes. The Rams don't have the greatest run-stopping defensive line. It's not terrible, and they were a lot better against the Niners because they expected it. But that's the only way to beat them. I mean, you saw what Deebo Samuel did on those short screens. They ate them all up. That's the way it needs to be attacked. And you got to wonder if Zach Taylor, being the predecessor of Sean McVay, is going to know this. I think that's just the chess match. There should be a good chess match going on. And if Zach Taylor's worth his weight as a Super Bowl coach, he should be able to try to attack that, which really worries me a little bit upon a Super Bowl side when it's over 4.5. Now, I did make a play on the side of this game. And as you know, the Bengals was my only future play when the playoffs started at 18-1. So I'm still holding that. And I'm just going to figure out some creative ways to hedge it myself. I know it's late. I'm going to have to lay a little juice on the money line part of it, but I'm going to get creative in game and do a few other things. But right now, nothing would shock me. I actually think the spread's not going to come into factor because most Super Bowls it doesn't. The winning team, wins anyway. It's not a win in a loss ATS. So I might get a little creative and do some alt lines myself.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm even gonna have a play on the side or total in this game. Probably just some prop bets for me. I know that's not really popular. A lot of handicappers would say, "Here's a huge bet for the Super Bowl," but I don't think there's a lot of great value in it. And I'll be sweating out the Super Bowl regardless here with being a Bengals fan. They don't get very many chances and stuff like this. So
that's right. And I want to mention, I forgot to mention real quick. If you guys want to comment, you can go to Kyle or my YouTube channel because their comments on Twitter don't work anymore. So if you want to ask us about a prop or anything kind of during the show or anything about college basketball, please feel free to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I see quite a few people watching live on Twitter. Unfortunately, you can't comment from that as you did in the past. So the YouTube pages are an option. Ben, what are your initial thoughts here on this spread and total here in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, to be honest, at -3.5, I jumped on the Rams when that opened up. And I think that was just more of a value play for me because I had a feeling the line was going to move. As far as the total goes, I'm not surprised that it dropped down because I do think there's a little bit of correlation with the Rams winning and it being an under because the narrative with that line, I'm kind of seeing that if the Rams can pressure Burrow, I don't know if they can put up a lot of points. Kiab made a good point about the home field advantage. I do agree with him that in a Super Bowl as a whole, you really don't see too much of that as a whole, even if the game was like, let's say in Tampa Bay, like it was last year, just because the way the tickets are divvied out and all that. So you're not going to get a true home field advantage, but I would give the Rams like a point, I would say. And that's just more to the aspect of lack of travel and the familiarity with the field, locker room, things of that nature, maybe closer to 0.75 to a point. But I think you have to give them something because I think if we're just saying on a neutral, the Rams are 4.5 points better right now than the Bengals. I think you'd have to slam the Bengals at that point, but you can disagree and say like, hey, maybe the home field is being overcooked in this line. So that's kind of how I look at the line because 4.5, I was curious if it would touch 5. If it gets to 5, you're going to see some pretty sharp action on the +5. Maybe a lot of the bettors who hit the -3.5 earlier to try to get a middle at 4 because that's not a bad middle. But I'm with you, Kyle. I mean, I'm obviously not with you that I'm a Bengals fan. I'm a Broncos fan. But I'm with you on the point about the props. I think I'll have 10 to 12 props loaded up for this one. Other than that 3.5, which was a smaller play, I'm staying away from the total on the side.
Okay, that's fair. So I see we have a question about the interception props. from KJO here. I haven't looked at these too much. I was just kind of pulling up DraftKings and looking. Burrow over half an interception is minus 125. Stafford over half an interception is minus 145. My initial thought would have been I kind of like a Stafford over, but minus 145 is not very cheap. So I wouldn't say I'm wild about that one. Burrow's thrown one interception now in the last 6 games or something combined. Having said that, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him here. So I have seen worse bets than taking over half at minus 125 there. Do you guys have any quick thought on anything you like about the interception props?
They're juiced a little bit now. I wouldn't necessarily take a Stafford one. I would lean towards a Burrow run, because if the spread is true, being past the 3, then they're going to be losing at some point, and he's going to take more chances. I think that there's a good chance he's going to try to force the ball to Jamar Chase, and you're going to have a really good cornerback on him and Jalen Ramsey, aren't you? That kind of leads into a few of the props that I took, but I haven't decided on an interception prop. I'm looking for a sack prop personally. If the numbers are right, I would definitely take Joe Burrow over his sacks, but I didn't see a lot of sack props yet, but I think they'll pop up later.
Yeah, I don't totally hate the interception prop, but I kind of lean towards more of a fumble prop. And I know a lot of times I've heard a narrative that fumbles can be random, which there is some truth to that, especially with the running backs. Some people don't like to hear that, but they've done some numbers on it. With a quarterback in a pass rush, it's a little different. When you're getting blindsided, you're probably going to fumble the ball if you get hit. And Von Miller, I mean, we know what he did in Super Bowl 50. Is he the same player he was? Probably not, but I don't think he's that far behind, especially when they put him in passing situations where, he can tee off on Burrow. I think there could be something with the sack props and the fumble props. I need to look more into them. But, personally, I would stay away from the interception props, just where I stand. But, make sure to shop around, though, because I'm already seeing a lot of discrepancies across the board at various books. So just make sure to look at a few books before, putting in a bet.
Absolutely. If you're a prop bettor and you're not shopping around, you're messing up for sure, because there can be 20 cent, 25 cent differences. And even when it comes to rushing yards, receiving yards, there can be 10 yards difference sometimes. So that makes a big difference.
And even 3 to 4 yards.
Right. Hold up.
I've lost 3 to 4 bets this year in NFL props off bad numbers. So it can come down to that half yard for sure. Yeah.
So
I've won on half yards and lost on half yards this year as well.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, 60 and a half stuff. I'm like,
where you're just watching the score and you're just seeing if they're going to change the stat correction, which happened to me. I was on the bad end of a Waller stat correction. Lost by So
happens in fantasy too, as we all know. Well, that's I'm glad he asked us about props. Maybe we should get right into that. And I think it's what you said about Von Miller's leads me into my prop. A lot of people went Aaron Donald for MVP, and I mean, when I saw the price that's 18 to 1, I'm like, oh, that's not right. And then now it's like down to 7 to 1 in some books, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The thing about Aaron Donald is he's an interior lineman, and he's going to get a lot of double teams. He disrupts a lot, and they stunt him in certain situations. But I mean, you got to think about history, and does history repeat itself? Yes, it repeats itself. What pass rusher did they pick up? They picked up Von Miller. Aaron Donald's going to be taking double teams. Joe Burrow holds the ball too long. They're number 31st in sack rate. If this is a defensive game and they're completely shut down, 50 to 1 on Von Miller seems way more attractive to me than taking Aaron Donald. So I took Von Miller because he's been there before, and he has the capability of doing it. I think his chances are better personally than Aaron Donald to get 3 sacks, maybe a forced fumble like that. If it's a low scoring game, which we have seen before, it's going to be a possible defensive prop. So I'm going to go with him for a long shot.
Yeah, I don't blame you. As we were talking, I see that DraftKings does have up the sack props now. So Rams over under 3.5, over 3.5 plus 110. Bengals over 1.5 sacks minus 150. So some interesting numbers there. I think I would probably take over 3.5 for the Rams, the plus money there. would be my strongest lean on that one. And then total sacks in the game over under 5.5 at plus 110. I agree with you. I think Miller has a chance, especially at that kind of price. I can't hate that at all. I'll give one prop here that I like. Burrow pass attempts under 36.5. So the last 2 games have both gone into overtime. He's had 37 and 38 pass attempts. I know that the Bengals are underdogs here, but I think that the Bengals understand that they can't just throw the ball every single play here. They have to run a decent amount with Mixon. The Rams defense is not tremendous at stopping the run. I think the Bengals want to play really slowly. If you remember, guys, in that game against the Chiefs, the Bengals were getting nearly a delay game almost every single play. 1 second, 2 second, they were snapping the ball. I think they'll do the same thing here, try to slow this down, try to keep their defense off the field some by running. So I'm going to take under 36.5 pass attempts for Joe Burrow. Ben, what's a prop that you like here for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think one that I was looking at and fired up is over 7.5 players to have a rushing attempt. This is an interesting one, and you have to kind of look into it. And I think there's a level of handicapping too to put on top of this one. So, of course, you have the 2 quarterbacks. You have Mixon, you have Akers and Michelle. So that brings us to 5, right? So we basically need 3 additional players from both teams to get a rush. Now, last game, the Bengals only had Mixon from the backfield get a rush, which I thought was pretty surprising. Now, Pirine hasn't been a big threat as a runner out of the backfield. And then Evans he's kind of thrown in there in passing situations. But what I do expect is based on those last 2 games, I think the Bengals actually will put Pirine in a position where he does get a rush, because at a certain point, what happens is the defenses will start to tip off when they see Pirine in the game, right? They're going to be like, well, we saw in film he's not getting a rush. But I think with an extra week to prepare, they'll put in some formations and schemes that Pirine could get a touch. And on top of that, I think you always want to get the ball in Chase's hands. So I think there's an opportunity for a rush there. And then Kupp has had a few carries too as well, and even Van Jefferson. So I think with all those things, and it being the last game of the year where you don't really have to save anything playbook wise, I think we're going to see 8 players have a rush, and a few books actually push this up to 8, which is kind of no fun, right? I like to see a hook one way or another. I doubt they would ever put it to 8.5, because I would just take the under at that point. But I think 7.5, that was on DraftKings at least late last night. And that was at minus 110. So pretty good price there. That's total players to have a rush in the Super Bowl.
I like that. I think Chase will probably get a carry in the Super Bowl. It would surprise me if he doesn't. I think that as far as the Bengals, they have to try to put Pirine in the run game some too, because like you said, they're just going to assume it's going to be a pass if he comes in there. And he is good with the screen passes and stuff. And I think we'll see several screens, but the screen doesn't work too effectively if you do it constantly. So, I think that's a good look. Guys, one more that I have real quick is most receiving yards in this game, Cooper Kupp plus 120. I think Chase being defended by Ramsey is really important for this bet. The other thing is we know how much volume there will be for Cooper Kupp. Stafford throws to him a lot, a really big amount of the time. And the Bengals, they're not going to be able to throw those deep balls near as much if Burrow's getting pressured right away. So I do want to say, Kiev, I think Burrow does hold the ball too long, but I think it's still mostly on the line. It's probably 90% on the line. And then Burrow runs around in circles sometimes and drops back a little bit deeper than he should, but he does get pressured really early. Maybe that's me just being a big Burrow fan, but I do think that it's primarily on the offensive line. Obviously, we know Burrow, when he throws passes, has been very efficient, throws a great ball. But I'll take Cooper Kupp over for the receiving yards, thinking for the most receiving yards here, plus 120. I think Kupp probably has over 100 yards here. The Bengals have to throw a lot of short, quick passes. I think T. Higgins will be a pretty big part of this game, too. If I was going to take an over on a Bengals receiver, I'd probably take over 5.5 on T. Higgins, thinking that Higgins will need to get plenty of looks here with Chase being defended by Ramsey. So, Kiev, did you have any more as far as props?
Yeah, I do. But I want to answer K-Joe real quick. Yeah, you can check out BetUS. They're a sponsor of ours, and you can use the promo code Better Odds. I believe that's what it was, Kyle. and you can get 100% sign up bonus with them. So, and they have a lot of props and lots available to you. And so they're a good place that accepts crypto. Obviously terms, conditions, and location apply, but that's between you and them. So, I'm going to talk about first score field goal here. Now, the correct odds on this is around the -1 or +150, +155. It's usually about a 60% chance they score a touchdown and about a 40% chance they score a field goal. But that's all NFL games. In the Super Bowl, you have to take the narrative that these teams are going to be a lot more careful with that ball the first drive. I can see some overthrows and things like that. So I think that's where it's going to give you value on the field goal. Now, I was picking these off the last 5 years when they would say +600 and +450. Well, I would take it on each team, right? And I would say they're going to kick the field goal. Now, if you look at the odds, they've adjusted down to +250 and things like that, +300. So you cut that in half, you're around the +150. So I found the prop just first score field goal is +150. Plus these field goal kickers are fantastic.
Yeah,
for both of these teams. And this also goes to the narrative. I didn't take a side or total. I went the derivative first half under. I like the first half under the Super Bowl under 20. I took it under 24, but it's down to 23.5. I could see it. If you can buy the 24 somewhere, I recommend that because you got 3 touchdowns in the field goal protection, but otherwise 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals. But I think that it starts off slow. I hit the first half under on every single Super Bowl over the past few years. You can just even look up the scores. They're it's a great bet, and sometimes I even go second half over. It just depends upon how low that sucker is.
Yeah, Kyle, and one more I wanted to give out. This is a fun one. I like it a lot, but I think there's a lot of value. It's the jersey number of a player to score the first touchdown, over or under 23.5. Now, when you think about this just immediately, and maybe how the public thinks of it, they think, well, over. We're setting the number at 23. It should be like closer to 50, right? Like just kind of splitting the difference of 100. But the more you look at it, a lot of the bigger scores are going to be under 23.5. You got Cup, you have Chase, Akers. Mixon, though, I believe is 26, so he would be over. But you have a lot of potential scorers under 23.5, and that's just at a -110. So I think the under there is actually a pretty good look, and that's one that I'll be betting.
And I like that, Ben, because you have to remember the quarterbacks were under that as well, and you could run in a 4th and inches, right, or 3rd and inches or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say Burrow could run in a touchdown. It wouldn't surprise anybody too much. Stafford, not a great runner, but you never know. I think that's an interesting one. There's a lot of the big name players that are very low numbers. So I like that. I like the fun props. I know there'll be some entertainment props coming out, and I always let my wife bet on a couple of those so she's interested in the Super Bowl as well. But guys, in general, props, I want to say real quick too. Everybody likes to take all overs when it comes to player props, and especially come Super Bowl Sunday. Keep an eye on some of those unders because the numbers can get inflated. You guys know this, but for the viewers, make sure you pay attention because these numbers get bet up. If you like the under, you probably want to bet it like the day of the game. If you like the over, you probably want to bet it earlier on. If you guys are ready, let's go ahead and talk some college basketball now. All of us love college basketball. We'll talk the Super Bowl a little bit more again next week, but let's start out talking here about Colorado State and San Diego State. Big game here tonight. Looking forward to seeing this game. I know Ben's pretty familiar with the Colorado State program, being out in Colorado. So, Ben, I'm going to let you start off here. San Diego State, Colorado State. We know that this was one where there was a blowout in their last game that they played. What's this one going to look like as far as revenge factor? Let's get your thoughts here on this one first.
Yeah, of course, the revenge factor is always in play in a spot like this. So I think at this point, it's one of those things where you just have to assume that maybe that's already in the line, which is okay because I think that's fair. The line opened up at 2.5. I'm showing 3.5. Is that fair? What you're showing?
Yeah.
So Colorado State, I still think is a very good team, potentially a top 25 team. Now they've gone through a little bit of a dry spell, losing 2 straight. They lost to UNLV at home, which was one of their worst home losses in recent memory. But we know that UNLV can get really hot, and when they're hitting threes, they're a really good team. And when they're not, they're like a bottom third team. They're one of those streaky teams from three, and UNLV couldn't miss in that game. And then last game for Colorado State, they had the Wyoming game, which is a rivalry game that was up in Laramie, tough place to play. But if you watch that game, that was a coin flip game that went into overtime. Roddy got thrown out or fouled out. I think if those teams played 100 times, it's 50-50. So imagine if Colorado State got that win, right? This number could be closer to 4.5 at this point in time. So I think we're just catching a little value off the overreaction and 2 losses in a row for Colorado State. The other thing, too, to consider is Adam Thistlewood. He's a very good three-point shooter for the Rams. He had a really good season last year. He's been a little slow this season to start. He's been out the last few games, but from what I've been hearing, he's expected to come back today. And that's really big because teams have to honor him from the wing. And if we've been watching Colorado State lately, they try to get Roddy the ball in the paint, but it's been a little clogged in positions where, teams are able to front him, double team him. I think if Roddy's in, that's very good offensively for the Rams. I think efficiency wise, they will get things done and, continue their good shooting. Of course, San Diego State's a really good team too. Matt Mitchell is really good. They're a solid squad, but I like this spot for the Rams. It's Friday night. They're doing an orange out too. Tickets are sold out. I just don't see this team losing 3 straight. They're too good of a team. High altitude too as well. San Diego State, obviously lower altitude. I think this line should be closer to 4.5, and maybe it moves up. But I like Colorado State a lot, even at 3.5.
Okay, yeah, I agree. This line is actually moving up as we speak. 3.5 pretty much across the board. It looks like there's some steam on Colorado State. I think that's probably the right side here too. And I know all 3 of us really like the work that Simon does over at shotquality.com.
Oh, yeah.
Shot quality, I don't know if you've seen the numbers from the first game. It was 79-49. Shot quality thinks the final score should have been 64-60. So that's a pretty big difference, a 30-point loss.
I like them even more now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to further support it, Ben, that loss to UNLV was 88-74. Shot quality thinks they should have won by 1 point in that game. So, there was some freak amazing shooting there from UNLV. Probably not going to get that too often. I'll tell you what, Roddy is a really good player. He's a lot of fun to watch. Steven's a good player as well, certainly. Colorado State's well coached. I think they're a good team. San Diego State, really, really good defense. Their offense can be really inconsistent. I don't know that I trust them here. I definitely lean Colorado State as well. Kiev, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm angry at myself because this was 2.5 last night, and I was like, you know what? San Diego State beat them. There's going to be probably some contrarian sides driving it down with the way their defense is numbered on Ken Palm, and I was wrong. It went the way I wanted it, that I was going to bet it. I was thinking I was going to get like maybe a flat 2 or a 1.5 or something like that. But I'm mad at myself for not taking it last night. But at the same time, most of my clients probably wouldn't have gotten that number anyway. A lot of the books they use, probably come out later anyway, so it's not terrible. But what I will say is that I don't believe San Diego State's defense is number 2 in the nation. I don't believe it. And I think that a lot of the offenses they've played just are not good offenses minus that Colorado State win. I think that when they do get hot, it's usually at home. It's not going to be away nearly as often. UNLV is a better team than they were early January, late December. So I'm not really caring about that win. They lost to Michigan when Michigan was bad in early December. Michigan was bad then. USC is not looking all that great either, and they lost by double digits to USC. BYU is massively overrated. They lost to BYU. This could be a nice get-up spot, and I like how Ben said this is going to be a lot of orange going on in this game as well. I think, this is just going to be one of those where Colorado can be shooting out of their minds, and the spread's not even come into play. So I can see myself having a smaller play on it.
Makes sense. And this should be a great game to watch here on Friday night. I like that we get some of these good games on Friday night, so can keep an eye on these while I'm looking at the massive slate of games for Saturday. And you guys know that there's a huge slate of games coming. Yeah, so
I have one more thing I wanted to point out here, Kyle. So with spreads around anytime you get a spread that's close to 0 or even up to 8, what do we always say is an important stat to look at?
Free throw.
Yep, absolutely. And Colorado State, one of the best free throw shooting teams in college basketball. They're almost shooting 80%. And I have been in so many positions over the years, and I've learned this from you, Kyle, where sometimes you bet on a team 3.5, and then you forgot to look at their free throw percentage, and they're a terrible free throw shooting team, and you can get those backdoor covers. Colorado State, that's not going to be the case. If they can grab that lead early and Roddy can get to the line, some of the other players get to the line, they're going to knock down those free throws, especially at home. So I feel good about this spread up to maybe 4, but obviously it's hard when I got it at 2.5, but I think past 4, you have to stay off of it because it could get there. It really could. 4.5, I wouldn't touch Colorado State, even though I like them a lot. We just know that the value's gone at that point.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's get into the Saturday games. We have a good slate of Saturday games. Let's start off with Duke and North Carolina. I will say I'll keep this one kind of quick because I don't have any really strong opinions on this one, but I know that a lot of people are going to want to know about Duke and North Carolina. So just a couple stats about this one real quick. Carolina unbeaten at home so far this year. They've been really bad on the road and on neutral courts. They've been very good at home. Duke will try to take advantage of Carolina defense that ranks 319th in transition defense. I think that could come into play in this game. This is not usually a game I like to bet. I'd rather watch it than I would bet it. I think an over might be a possibility. Duke has had some low-scoring games here of late. We think of that Notre Dame game where, did Notre Dame get to 50 points in that game? It was just so low-scoring. This game shouldn't be like that. Yeah, 43 points. I mean, that's insane. And I don't think Duke's defense is that good, right? I mean, they're pretty good, but they're not that good. North Carolina, we know they like to crash the offensive boards. They're not as good on the offensive glass as they've been in recent seasons, but that hurts them when it comes to transition defense. Teams can get out and run and beat them down the court. I think Duke can probably do that here. As far as this line, I think that we're going to get a pretty high total. You always get a high total with Duke and North Carolina, probably in the 148.5 range. The spread, I see KenPom has 3 for Duke, which the line's pretty much going to come out at what KenPom has probably. So, Ben, do you have any thoughts on this game real quick?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing with the over. I think that's going to be my initial look. I can see both these teams just really trying to push the tempo. I'm with you too, as someone who likes to stay away from more of these marquee type of games. If anything, it would be the total, but as far as the spread goes, I'll probably stay away. But it is interesting. North Carolina at home, I think they are undefeated straight up. Haven't lost a game, so I'm curious how that kind of factors into how this line is made because, it's going to be a close spread either way. So, yeah, one of those games I'll probably just be watching as a fan. I mean, it's going to be Coach K's, one of his last games there. So,
yeah. Kiev?
Yeah, I'm looking at Haslametrics here, and I just shared that on the screen. North Carolina is a great home team. They rank 3rd out of all teams, meaning they are about 5.18 efficiency points over the norm when they're playing at home. That's large for college basketball. But at the same time, Duke's not that bad away. Consistency, neither of these teams are consistent, and that scares me a little bit because I don't know if they're going to lock it down on defense like Duke did to Notre Dame. That total was at 143.5. I hit the under, and it was at 140. It went to 144.5. I'm like, really? Well, that game didn't even get to 100 points. Duke is playing great defense right now. They're playing fantastic defense. And to be honest with you, I think Duke is kind of a sleeper little play for me. And I know it's a very public play, maybe to win the tournament. But if I'm getting double digits to 1 on Duke, I would consider Duke, depending upon obviously how things seed out. I think Duke's phenomenal. Now, the problem is North Carolina going to be great at home, which you see on some of these statistics here, looking on the bottom of the screen. I'm worried about it, but it's always a great game to watch, and I'm definitely going to watch it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get involved.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all of our sentiment. And Kiev, I don't want to have to root for Duke when it comes to the NCAA tournament, so I can't take any Duke futures. But
Well, you couldn't
I
take
mean,
the
there's
Bengals future with me either. And what's going on, man? You say you
no,
don't like futures.
I stay out of Bengals bets. I try to stay away from those, but I will.
I'm just kidding. I know.
Hey, I hope your Bengals future cashes in a
I'm
big
sure
way,
you do.
certainly. But no, I mean, I'm just not a massive fan of Duke by any standards, and I don't
I
think
hate
any of
Duke.
us
They
are
beat
big
my
Duke
Badgers
fans.
and
But,
screw Duke. But I'm telling you, I like money, and if I'm
No,
gonna lose because Duke wins, then I want to win some money on them.
Sure. No, I agree with that. Yeah, it's just kind of messing around with the fact that I really don't like to root for Duke. But let's move on to Gonzaga and BYU, guys. This is a game that I'm certainly looking forward to. This is a 10 p.m. Eastern time game on ESPN. Now, Ken Palm has this line at 10. I think this line will probably be bigger than 10 based on how Gonzaga has been playing lately in BYU. If this line is 10, I think I'll have to bet Gonzaga in this one. Some of my notes on this one, this is usually the trickiest game for Gonzaga and the WCC, but is it this year? I mean, BYU is really banged up as far as big guys. You don't really want to be banged up in the front court when you're playing against Timmy and Gonzaga and even Holmgren. This is a Gonzaga team that's playing so well right now, and they're really, really good on transition offense. Number one in the country in efficiency and transition. BYU's transition defense is number 320 out of 358. Yikes. I think Gonzaga is going to score a bunch of points again here. They scored 110 in the first matchup, and they could have scored more than that. They led off at the end of the game. Gonzaga team total over, probably a decent look in this game. As far as the side, like I said, I certainly lean Gonzaga in this game. BYU has a good home court advantage. BYU probably, I guess the only negative to taking it over, I would think, guys, that BYU probably wants to slow this game down. I mean, I don't think they want to try that again with getting in transition and trying the fast-paced game with Gonzaga. So that's the only negative to taking any kind of over in this game. But if Gonzaga gets ahead by very much, then BYU kind of has to scrap that plan. So I think Gonzaga wins this game pretty comfortably. The matchup in the front court is a big concern for me, and then the transition defense being that bad. Gonzaga playing so well here this season. So, Kiev, do you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm actually mad that BYU lost to the Dons because Ken Palm had it at 8-point spread yesterday.
Yeah.
I was like, dang it. But, there is no way that this should be a 10-point spread. And I think you're going to see it up into the 12s or 13s, to be honest with you. Maybe at 3-4 o'clock, you can grab one of these early lines on Zags. I think the Zags cleaned their clock. I think that they are massively overrated. I don't think BYU is number 36 on Ken Palm. They weren't number 28 in Ken Palm yesterday before they played. And if you look at their best win, I was way against San Diego State, which we just knocked a while ago. Oregon's not that good of a team anymore. And this is back in November, like early November, right? We're still doing college football. Utah State is, I think, a little bit overrated myself, but yeah, I guess you can call that an okay rant. St. Mary's is a weird team, and they're extremely cold in the game that they play BYU. I don't like some of their losses to Vanderbilt. I don't like their loss to Utah Valley. I don't like their loss to Creighton. And these 3 in a row just really smell. Gonzaga names their final score here. And Gonzaga likes to beat teams by margin because they like being on Ken Palm at number 1. Mark Few's not going to stop them. Lay the points, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Gonzaga, traditionally with their spreads, you got to get in as early as you can, because I would say 9 times out of 10, I haven't tracked this, but almost 9 times out of 10, it feels like the lines move up, right? So if you like Gonzaga, you should probably get in as soon as you can find a line. But obviously you have to be careful just to see where the number's at. But man, 3 losses in a row for BYU. A week ago, I was pretty content with them making the tournament, but now I feel like they're kind of on the bubble again, right? And, in the WCC, traditionally that's a conference that will get 1 to 2 teams in. And I think a few times they've gotten 3. I don't think they've ever gotten 4 in. I would have to look back, but I doubt it, just because, San Francisco over the years just really hasn't been that type of caliber of a team. So if San Francisco plays their way in, it's like, hey, does BYU sneak their way in? So I'm curious with that on their minds. Do they come up and get inspired at home against Gonzaga? Maybe, but that's half the battle. I mean, Gonzaga is one of the most talented teams in college basketball, so who really cares if that is the mentality? You still have to play the game. I think if this spread's at 10, 11, probably I'd lean Gonzaga, but if it creeps up to like 12, I doubt it would, but maybe I would maybe look at BYU. I just hate betting against Gonzaga because they could have a game where they're close with Gonzaga throughout, and we've seen Gonzaga, they go on those runs where they score 10 points in 2 minutes and all of a sudden they're covering. So it's going to be interesting to see how BYU comes out, and Barcelo's going to need to have like a 25, 30-point game if they have any chance of winning or covering.
Absolutely. Barcelo's great. He doesn't have enough help on that BYU team. So I think we're kind of in agreement. I will say there's one book that I won't mention that has a early line of 10.5 on this game. So we'll see what the bigger books come out at. And I think Gonzaga will get bet in this game. So if you like the Zags, you probably want to bet it at the beginning. Ben, we have a real quick question here from Kjo for you. Fun question for Ben. Is Rodgers priced in moving to Denver for the Broncos futures? What do you think about that one?
Yes. I believe it's at 20 or 15 to 1. So absolutely. Yeah. It's kind of priced in there already. And you know what's funny is last year the same type of thing happened. It didn't get all the way to 15 or 20. I think it ended up at like 25 or 30 to 1 with the same thing in mind. But obviously Rodgers didn't come here, but it sounds like, you know, maybe I'm just super optimistic that there's maybe over a 50% chance he comes to Denver, but I would say it's definitely priced in already.
Yeah, it's a horrible price too because they still got Kansas City there,
and the Chargers too. I mean,
you have to assume that they're going to get the wild card, which is an extra playoff game. I mean, take the money line rollover all day anyway. You know, even with them, that any futures this early are absolutely ridiculous unless you know something about a team that is going to completely change, and you have to have a pretty good hunch because the NFL market's the toughest to beat.
Yeah, and I would say even let's say we could look into a crystal ball and say Rodgers does come here. I would price that closer to 20 to 1,
right?
With him, you know, finalizing that.
Yeah, with it finalized.
Yeah, now we're looking at that right now with a 50-50. And there's news that came out the other day about Bridgewater potentially signing here again. So I'm like, what are we doing? So I would pump the brakes on that if you're looking to bet that.
Yeah, I agree with that because the price wouldn't really even be good if Rodgers was there. And how would you like to have that ticket if Rodgers doesn't come there? I mean, that's going to be that's going to be an ugly one to have then.
Yeah.
So we'll wait on that one and we'll revisit certainly. But let's look at the next game we have here: Montana State versus Weber State. This is one that Ben wanted to talk about here in the Big Sky. Big Sky is one of my favorite conferences. You know, there's some good value on a lot of these teams usually. And, you know, I just think this is an interesting meeting because Weber State just beat Montana. And Montana is Weber State's top competition in this league. So now they have what you can consider maybe a letdown spot against Montana State. But Montana State's one of the better teams in the Big Sky as well. It looks like the lines, a lot of the places projecting about 5.5 or 6 point spread on this game. Ben, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on this one because the Big Sky, it's been fun basketball this year. There's some decent teams. You know, I think either Montana State or Weber State, one of those two teams is probably going to win the conference. And I could see them being like a 14 seed potentially. Weber State is a really good team. And when they get hot from three, like they get going. I bet on them a few times this year. Kobe McEwen, you know, they have a few other guys who can really stroke from deep. Overton. Or it's actually Jawara, I believe, is the other 3-point shooter. So this is a good game to watch, even if you aren't a fan of the Big Sky or either of these teams, because there's a really good chance that one of these two teams is going to be in the tournament, and it's going to be kind of the playoff feel, right? Tournament feel, two really good teams. You know, the loser of this one, I think, drops down in the standings a little bit in the Big Sky. You want to have a good seed there with about 6 or 7 games remaining in conference. So, yeah, I think the spread, what you mentioned, is going to be about right. You know, it's interesting Weber State being back at home again. I knew some guys who were pretty sharp who were on Montana +6 the last game. So we'll see if that kind of continues, because I think Montana State is a better team than Montana. But at the same time, Weber State didn't really have the best three-point shooting game last game. So, and they didn't against Eastern Washington either. Before that, they were shooting close to 50% 3 straight games. So this is just such a tough one because it comes down to, do we think they're going to shoot lights out from 3 or not? And sometimes that puts you in a bind. So I'm really going to watch the line to see which way it goes and, potentially grab some value even on Montana State if it can get high enough.
Yeah.
A great call in this game. It's really interesting. Road revenge is a possible angle here. You look at some of the numbers here, and I'm just going to try to put this slide up for you guys. Another bad home team in Weber State. They're not really living. They're winning games, but they're not covering or living up to what they have, being ranked 350th at home, while Montana State ranks 127th. Weber State, not the most consistent team either, as you can see. They do have a lot of momentum going for them, but I think if you're going to get an above 5, you really have to look for Montana State. I almost feel they're going to have a do or die attitude here, Ben. And them coming into this, it's going to be fierce. You can see this could be a 1-point game when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think road revenge has been a great angle in college basketball for many years, especially in conference play. We don't want to look at some people talk about revenge from previous seasons and stuff like that, but I'm talking about from the same season when they've already lost at home and then winning on the road. That can be a really good angle. I was looking at the shot quality numbers for that initial game. Pretty interesting, actually. 10-point win for Weber State. Shot quality thinks based on the quality of shots, it should have been an 8-point loss for Weber State. So really interesting. I see the opening line that is out there right now is 5. I would hope for better than 5. I think if you can get 5.5 or more, Montana State's probably worth a little bit of a bet here. I think I will probably take it for something if we can get at least 5.5 points. Also, I mean, I knew Montana State was playing well, but I didn't realize they'd won 11 of their last 12 games. So they're certainly playing very well themselves. Big Sky, a fun conference, as you guys know, and also a really good conference for over bettors. There's some really good long-term angles for overs. Not much defense played in this conference, and plenty of pace, to be sure. So
Portland State, Northern Colorado almost had 200. Maybe it hit 200.
I think it did. Yeah,
Yeah,
I did have the over in that one. I've been running bad here lately, so it's nice to get a no sweat winner on that. Actually, I've had the over.
Deserve that one.
Yeah, that was I took the over both the games that they played here. The line got bet down pretty hard yesterday at one point. Was able to get 147. And Portland State plays ridiculously fast, not very good defensively, a lot of fouling. Northern Colorado, really good offensive team this year, and they've really picked up the pace. So, yeah, definitely a conference where I still like to look for overs, especially on the low numbers. Let's transition to one more game here, Mississippi State and Arkansas on Saturday. Kiev, I know this is one you wanted to talk about, so let's hear it.
Well, Kyle, I have a question for you. Is there 359 teams in college basketball?
I think it's 358.
Yeah, because that's IUPUI at the bottom. That's how I know.
That's right. There's 358. And Mississippi State is 358th in away games. That is dead last.
They don't have the bells, right? Like, that's the problem.
Oh, that is so bad. And they are so inconsistent here. I know that they have a little bit of momentum to them. They went on a nice little bit of run last couple of weeks, but they are a very inconsistent team. Arkansas has kind of been hyping up a little bit. They're 35th in momentum right now. They're creeping back up in the ranks, and they had a bad start to the season themselves, but they kind of figured it back out. Arkansas, they had made a pretty deep run. I think it was Elite 8 last year, and they ended up doing pretty well the last 4 or 5 weeks here. And if you look at, let's just pull up Arkansas on KenPom here. I want to show something that makes me really like this side, and hopefully the line won't be too dependent here, but KenPom's got this by 4, so I'm going to guess it's going to be between 4 to 5 points. Maybe it's 5. But if you look at something here for Mississippi State, I'm clicking on Mississippi State here. If you look they don't take many threes, right? They rank 333rd in 3 points attempted. That's important because their scoring is all by 2-point percentage. Their 3-point percentage is low, so they're not going to take a lot of threes. They're going to try to score inside. Well, if you look at Arkansas, switching to conference only, even they're number 2 in guarding against the 2, right? They're doing a phenomenal job guarding inside. So that's, the way that they could very much beat them. Arkansas, not great against guarding the 3, but heck, Mississippi State doesn't shoot threes. So in this situation, with the speed that Arkansas plays at 16.3 seconds per possession, right? 16.6 in conference, you can get more margin with more possessions. Arkansas might be my biggest play for the weekend, guys.
I was kind of looking at this one as Kiev was talking. I like this look, Kiev. I hadn't really looked at this game much, but Arkansas is a team that I think has a really high upside. And Arkansas kind of underachieved for a while at the beginning of the season. They've been rounding into form here lately, playing really good basketball. Musselman's a really good coach. I think his teams are usually good this time of the year and into March. This is an Arkansas team that I think is still probably rated a bit too low, even at Ken Palm at 31. That's probably too low. And Mississippi State is 40th. I know Mississippi State beat them earlier this year, but Kiev just showed you Mississippi State's not been good on the road. They lost by 8 at Florida. They lost by 10 at Mississippi. They've had some poor showings even on neutral courts. They've done well at home, but they're not at home for this one. Kiev, I don't know what the spread will be on this one. I see 4 at Ken Palm. I can't imagine we'll get as good as 4, right?
That's wishful thinking, my man. But
Yeah.
if you do, you jump on it quick because there's going to be more people thinking like us.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get 4, but maybe 4.5 or something like that. Hopefully, we don't have to lay 5 or more. But Ben, do you have any thoughts on this game, real quick?
What's interesting is Arkansas is coming off their best 3-point shooting game of the season. They went 15 for 28, which is above 50%. Sometimes that scares me because there could be some regression due. But looking at some of Arkansas's numbers from 3, they had a stretch in November where it has to be one of the worst 3-point shooting stretches of any team. They were 3 for 22, 3 for 17, 3 for 17, 4 for 18. And then it seems the second half, 2022, they kind of figured it out a little bit, minus their 0 for 11 shooting performance against South Carolina, which they still won by 16. So I think in this game, we're not asking for Arkansas to shoot 45, 50%, but they just need to take good shots and take, efficient shots, because a team like Mississippi State, like you have mentioned, they're not the best perimeter defensive team. So I think in this spot, I have to lean with Arkansas based on how Mississippi State has played on the road. I'm very curious what this number opens up at.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to seeing where this one opens. Real quick, before we go, guys, I wanted to put this question up here from Andrew. What's the best way to enter the world of sports handicapping? Where do you start? And he said he's talking about breaking down games like we do and job-wise. He's been betting for a while. So I'll go real quick first. The way that I think is the best way to kind of break into it is to try to reach out to different people in the industry, see if you can write articles for anybody, see if you can start posting picks on a place like BetStamp or something like that. This is an industry that's getting bigger and bigger. You want to try to get yourself out there as much as you can, and maybe even start doing some videos or things like that. But as far as breaking down the games the way we do, I think I can speak for all of us. I spend a lot of time researching these games, and I have all kinds of different websites that I look at on a day-to-day basis. This is a process where you want to track how you do long-term. I don't know what kind of better you've been long-term, but you want to specialize in the sports that you've seen the best results in. And, you're not always going to be equal in all the sports. I know I'm not. I'm better at some sports than I am at others. If I were you, I'd try to focus on one area that you've been really strong in and try to put yourself out there. It's an industry, like I said, that's growing. So reach out to several people and see if you can get on tracking some plays or things like that. But Kiev, do you have any thoughts as far as how to kick off thing in sports handicapping?
Yeah, start just like I love what you said about blogging. Reach out to some places that they're probably going to not be able to pay you, but get your name out there when you blog for a place. they're going to put it out to all their readers, and then your Twitter handle is going to be there and everything. Have a good Twitter presence. Always be just talking with sports bettors. Sports bettors release Twitters, every day, all day long. It's the biggest probably place for sports bettors is just talking about games on Twitter. So talk to them about it and give your opinion, ask questions, and if it's starts developing into something bigger, go to WordPress and build a quick little website for yourself. There's a lot of YouTube videos on how to do that. It's simple these days, and then you can start with a little bit more of a presence, and then after that you can start podcasting, and maybe one of these days you're going to be a guest with somebody. It's fun, but it's a passion. You got to make sure you're committed. At the Odds Breakers, I've had way more people come and leave than I've had people stay. Probably 90% are fly-by-night people and 10% stay, I would say. So just make sure you're committed, because if you're not 100%, this is my passion, I love it, I don't care if I lose, this is just, I want to learn, I want to be better, I'm going to do this the rest of my life, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, and I had two things I wanted to touch on. I would say number one, especially with a sport like college basketball, I would say to kind of specialize in one conference or maybe two, right? Because there's so many teams where if you try to put your hands in every conference, you're just going to get overwhelmed. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and I know you guys have too. I'm still overwhelmed. There's so many teams in college basketball, but you get to a point where you know what to look for. But I think if you start on a smaller scale, pick maybe a bigger conference and then a smaller conference and kind of specialize, because then you can start to do what we're doing here, where we're looking at previous games, the familiarity with the matchups, things of that nature. And then things will start to, piece themselves together from a smaller point, and then you can grow out. And I would say number two, don't lose sight of doing things the right way with transparency and just, it's kind of cliche, but just be a good person, because I think there's a lot of people who can get into the space and really kickstart things quicker, maybe in the wrong fashion. But I think it's a huge community, but it's actually smaller than you would think. A lot of people talk, a lot of people that I reach out to know a lot of the faces. So just remember that, because your reputation is one thing that you can't really get back.
Yeah, I think those are good points. I think it's a positive community in some ways, but there can be so many negative people out there that do it the wrong way. So you want to try to make sure that you're on the right side of that. And Kiev's right as well, as far as the longevity and making sure that you're actually sticking to it, because I've had so many people reach out to me over the years. Hey, I want to partner up and do this. I want to partner up and do that. And before you know it, they're MIA. They're not around anymore.
They're selling NFTs.
Right. Yeah, they switch into the newest fad, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's got to be a passion. It's got to be something you love, because it is really a grind. It's not going to be short hours or easy or anything like that. So you got to enjoy it. That's for sure. So guys, I think it was a good show. We went a little bit longer than I expected, but certainly appreciate it. Ben, I want to start off with you. Let everybody know, viewers, where they can come to find your information on all your plays.
Yeah. Twitter's a good start. Ben __ Capwise_ is the Twitter handle for me. And then the company site that I started is Capwise. That's CAPWIZE. We give out free plays, but I think for us, we're definitely trying to transition into giving out a lot of information, right? We're always going to have the free plays, but I think the more we can focus on that, the better. And then we also have a Discord group too. I think that would be a good group for, I think it was Andrew who asked, just putting yourselves in those communities where you can just learn without having to really show a face to start, if you feel more comfortable that way. But yeah, we're on Twitter. We'll be on TikTok. You'll see my face pop up. So yeah, just trying to continue to grow and get our name out there.
Yeah, I do encourage Andrew. I think a Discord group like Capwise is a very good one. I know they have a nice community over there. So I encourage everybody to check out their work. Kiev, tell us about the Odds Breakers.
Yeah, the oddsbreakers.com. We're this place where people love to read about picks and plays, and we cover most sports. I mean, if something, we don't do badminton or anything, but we've had some tennis bloggers. We have people that come on there and talk about pretty much whatever you want. I'm a big UFC guy, and I'm really excited to talk about that this weekend. I have premium plays for people. for our subscribers. And obviously, if that's something you like, you're more than welcome to be a member and support us. If not, you can get it for free plays. We always have free plays for people. It's not going to be our highest rated play, but still, it's plays we're making. We're betting money on all these plays. We do not give plays we don't bet on ever. So we're with you the 100%. And follow us on Twitter if you haven't.
And check out my work, huntersportspicks.com. You can sign up for the free picks newsletter over there. Also, subscribe to my YouTube page. Click the bell to get notified. Check out all these guys' work. Happy to do a show with Kiev and Ben. Also, follow me on Twitter at KyleHunterPicks. Guys, thanks again. Was fun, and I appreciate the time. And best of luck on all your plays this weekend, guys, and we'll see you again next week.